The sharp scent of eucalyptus mingled with roses filled my lungs as I trimmed another stem, my fingers moving with the practiced precision of someone who'd spent the last 5 years building a business from nothing. Petals and Promises wasn't much. A small storefront in the arts district with exposed brick walls and vintage wooden shelving. But it was mine. Every early morning, every skipped meal, every sleepless night worrying about rent had led to this moment. My biggest contract yet. The Thornton wedding. I adjusted the ribbon on a sample centerpiece, stepping back to examine it critically. Blush peonies cascaded over the rim of a mercury glass vase, their soft petals contrasting beautifully with the deep burgundy dahlias I'd sourced from an estate sale upstate. White ranunculus filled the gaps, and trailing amaranthus added that touch of drama the bride, Victoria Thornton, had specifically requested. "Madison, the delivery truck is here," called Jenny, my part-time assistant, from the front of the shop. Her pixie-cut blonde hair was barely visible over a tower of boxes containing votive candles. "Coming." I wiped my hands on my apron, leaving faint green smudges on the cream fabric. My lower back ached from being on my feet since 6 this morning, but I pushed the discomfort aside. This wedding could change everything for my business. The Thornton name carried weight in this city. Old money, connections, influence. Landing their daughter's wedding had come through a referral from another bride, and I'd nearly wept with relief when Victoria's assistant had called with the confirmation. 6 figures for flowers alone, enough to finally pay off my business loan and maybe, just maybe, hire another full-time employee. I hauled boxes of supplies from the truck, my arms straining under the weight of glass cylinders and floral foam. The afternoon sun beat down on the back alley, making me grateful for the oversized t-shirt I'd thrown on over my tank top. Not exactly glamorous, but comfort trumped fashion when you were elbow-deep in thorns and water. "Madison Cole?" A smooth voice made me turn, nearly dropping the box I was carrying. A man stood at the entrance to the alley, backlit by the afternoon sun. Tall, lean, with that effortless confidence that came from never having to work for anything in his life. As he stepped closer, details emerged. Sandy brown hair that fell across his forehead in an artfully casual way, bright blue eyes that crinkled at the corners when he smiled, and a jawline that belonged in cologne advertisements. "That's me," I said, setting down the box and brushing my hair out of my face. I was suddenly, acutely aware of the dirt under my fingernails and the sweat dampening my hairline. Miles Thornton. He extended his hand, his smile widening. "Vicky's brother." She asked me to stop by and confirm some details about the rehearsal dinner setup. Of course he's a Thornton. Only old money could make jeans and a white button-down look that expensive. I shook his hand, trying not to wince at how rough my own palm must feel. "Nice to meet you. I thought we'd covered everything in the last email." We probably did. His gaze traveled over the boxes, then back to my face with unmistakable interest. But I wanted to meet the woman who's been making my sister lose her mind over peonies versus garden roses for the last 3 months. Despite myself, I laughed. In her defense, they're very different flowers. They're both pink. His grin was infectious. But what do I know? I'm just the brother who writes the checks. Over the next 20 minutes, Miles helped me carry boxes inside while peppering me with questions that had nothing to do with flowers and everything to do with getting to know me. Where was I from? How long had I been in the city? Did I always want to be a florist? I found myself answering honestly, charmed by his easy manner and genuine interest. He didn't have that air of superiority I'd expected from someone with his background. When he laughed at my story about accidentally dyeing my entire apartment purple during a failed experiment with floral dyes, his amusement seemed real, not polite. "So you'll be at the rehearsal dinner Friday?" he asked, as we finished unloading. "Just to set up the flowers and make sure everything looks right." "Good." Something in his tone made me look up. He was watching me with an intensity that hadn't been there before. "I'll look forward to seeing you there." After he left, Jenny appeared at my elbow, fanning herself dramatically. Please tell me that gorgeous man is single. That gorgeous man is the client's brother, I reminded her, but I couldn't quite suppress my smile. The next 3 days passed in a blur of preparation. I barely slept, crafting each centerpiece with obsessive attention to detail. Victoria wanted perfection, and I was determined to deliver. The rehearsal dinner would be my first impression on the entire Thornton family and their social circle. People who could afford to spend more on flowers than most people made in a year. Friday evening, I arrived at the Thornton estate 2 hours early. The house, mansion, really, sprawled across manicured grounds that probably required a full-time staff. Classical columns framed the entrance, and warm light spilled from windows that stretched floor to ceiling. A uniformed staff member directed me to the garden terrace where dinner would be served. Round tables had been set with cream linens and gold flatware that gleamed in the fading sunlight. I got to work immediately, placing each centerpiece with careful precision, adjusting heights and angles until they looked effortlessly arranged. They're beautiful. I jumped, nearly knocking over a vase. Miles stood a few feet away, now dressed in a navy suit that fit him like it had been made for his body. Probably because it had. You're early, I said, pressing a hand to my racing heart. So are you. He moved closer, examining one of the centerpieces. Victoria's going to love these. I hope so. I tucked a stray piece of amaranthus deeper into the arrangement. She has very specific taste. That's a polite way of saying she's demanding as hell. He grinned. But she means well, mostly. Over the next hour, as I finished the setup and guests began to arrive, Miles kept finding excuses to come back to the terrace. He'd bring me water, ask questions about different flowers, or simply stand nearby making observations that had me laughing despite my nerves. I should have been working. Should have been packing up my supplies and leaving before the actual dinner began. But when Miles asked if I'd stay for a drink, just one? You've been working all day. I found myself agreeing. That's when I met his family. Victoria swept onto the terrace first, resplendent in a white cocktail dress that probably cost more than my rent. She examined the flowers with a critical eye before breaking into a genuine smile. Madison, these are absolutely perfect. Exactly what I envisioned. Relief flooded through me. I'm so glad you're happy. Happy? I'm ecstatic. She pulled me into an unexpected hug that smelled of expensive perfume. You're a miracle worker. The next hour was a whirlwind of introductions. Victoria's parents. Elegant, gracious, exactly what I'd expected from old money. Her fiancé, a finance guy whose name I immediately forgot. Various aunts, uncles, and family friends whose titles and accomplishments blurred together. And then, as I was accepting a glass of champagne from a passing waiter, Miles appeared at my elbow with 2 men I hadn't met yet. Madison, I want you to meet my brothers. He gestured to the taller of the 2, a man who looked like an older, more serious version of Miles. This is Marcus, and this is our younger brother, James. I turned with a smile, champagne glass in hand, ready to greet them with the same warm enthusiasm I'd shown everyone else that evening. The smile froze on my face. Marcus Thornton wasn't just handsome. He was devastating in a way that made my breath catch and my pulse stutter. Older than Miles by what looked like 5 or 6 years, he had the same bone structure, but none of the boyish softness. His dark hair was shorter, styled back from a face all sharp angles and hard edges. Where Miles's eyes were bright blue, Marcus's were so dark they appeared almost black in the fading light. And where Miles wore his wealth like a comfortable sweater, Marcus wore it like armor. But it was something else that made my stomach drop. Some instinct, some primal recognition that this man was dangerous in ways that had nothing to do with physical threat. His eyes locked onto mine, and I watched something shift in their depths. Not recognition, we'd never met, but something else. Something that made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. Madison. My name in his mouth sounded different. lower, rougher, weighted with meaning I couldn't interpret. I extended my hand automatically, falling back on professional courtesy. "Nice to meet you." His hand engulfed mine, warm and firm and somehow possessive. He held it a beat too long, his gaze never leaving my face. I was acutely aware of Miles standing beside me, of the interested looks from other guests, of the way my heart hammered against my ribs for no rational reason. "The pleasure is mine," Marcus said finally, releasing my hand. But his eyes remained fixed on me with an intensity that made me want to simultaneously step closer and run away. Miles, oblivious or deliberately ignorant of the tension, threw an arm around my shoulders in an easy, familiar gesture. "Madison's the genius behind all these flowers. Isn't she talented?" I felt Marcus's attention sharpen, his gaze dropping to where Miles's arm rested against me. "Very talented," Marcus agreed, but he wasn't looking at the flowers. The dinner began shortly after, and I made my excuses to leave. I'd stayed longer than intended, and I needed to get back to the shop to prepare for tomorrow's deliveries. But as I gathered my empty vases and ribbon scraps, Miles found me again. "Let me walk you out," he insisted, taking a box from my hands despite my protests. We made our way through the house toward the front entrance, Miles filling the silence with stories about his sister's bridezilla moments and asking more questions about my business. At the door, he set down the box and turned to face me. "I had a really good time talking with you tonight," he said, his voice softer than before. "Would you maybe want to grab dinner sometime? After the wedding chaos is over?" I hesitated. Miles was charming, attractive, clearly interested, and I was single, had been for over a year since my last relationship had imploded spectacularly. What harm could dinner do? "I'd like that," I heard myself say, returning his smile. His grin widened. "Great. I'll call you next week." He leaned in, and for a moment I thought he might kiss me. Instead, he pressed a quick, friendly kiss to my cheek before stepping back. "Drive safe, Madison." I was halfway to my car, boxes balanced in my arms, when I heard footsteps behind me. Heavy, purposeful, nothing like Miles's easy stride. Madison. I turned to find Marcus emerging from the shadows beside the house. He'd removed his suit jacket, and his white shirt glowed in the darkness. Even from several feet away, I could feel the intensity radiating from him. "Mr. Thornton," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Did I forget something?" He moved closer, each step deliberate until he stood directly in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to maintain eye contact. Up close, I could see the faint scar along his jawline, could smell expensive cologne with notes of cedar and something darker. "Wrong, brother," he said quietly. I blinked, certain I'd misheard. "I'm sorry? My brother." His gaze dropped to where Miles had kissed my cheek, then back to my eyes. "You smiled at him, laughed with him, let him touch you." His voice remained soft, conversational even, but something underneath made my pulse race. "Wrong, brother. I don't understand." The boxes in my arms suddenly felt unbearably heavy. Marcus reached out, and I froze as his fingers traced my jawline with unexpected gentleness. "You will," he murmured. "Soon enough you'll understand exactly what I mean." Then he stepped back, sliding his hands into his pockets as though he hadn't just invaded my personal space, and said something that sounded like both a promise and a threat. "Good night, Madison. I'll be seeing you." He turned and walked back toward the house, leaving me standing alone in the darkness, my heart pounding, and my mind racing with questions I couldn't begin to answer. Saturday morning arrived with 36 blood-red roses. I stared at them through my shop window, their deep crimson heads pristine and perfect. arranged in a crystal vase that probably cost more than my monthly utilities. The delivery driver waited patiently while I signed, his expression carefully neutral in the way of someone accustomed to delivering extravagant gifts. "Who are they from?" Jenny asked, already reaching for the small cream envelope tucked among the thorns. I plucked it from her fingers before she could open it. My hands trembled slightly as I broke the wax seal. An actual wax seal, pressed with what looked like a family crest. These reminded me of you. Beautiful, but with thorns. MT. MT. Jenny read over my shoulder, making me jump. Miles Thornton? Madison? You didn't tell me you were seeing him. I'm not seeing him. I tucked the card into my apron pocket, trying to ignore the way my stomach had twisted at those two initials. We just talked at the rehearsal dinner. But even as I said it, doubt crept in. MT could be Miles. He'd asked me to dinner after all. The roses could easily be his way of following up, of making an impression. Except something about the message felt wrong for Miles. He was smooth, charming, the kind of man who'd send something cheerful and bright. Not blood-red roses with a note about thorns. I pushed the thought away and threw myself into work. The Thornton wedding was in a week, and I had 1,000 details to finalize. Bouquets to assemble, centerpieces to perfect, timing to coordinate with the venue. No time to obsess over mysterious flower deliveries. The roses appeared again Monday morning. This time, 4 dozen white peonies arranged so exquisitely they looked like clouds captured in glass. Your work is art, but you are the masterpiece. MT Tuesday brought orchids, rare, expensive, in shades of purple so deep they were almost black. Wednesday, a single perfect calla lily in a sleek black vase, its cream petal unfurling like a secret. Simplicity has its own elegance, but you deserve grandeur. MT. By Thursday, my small shop looked like a botanical garden, and I was no closer to understanding who MT actually was. The rational part of my brain insisted it had to be Miles. He was the one who'd shown interest, who'd asked me out. But something deeper, more instinctual, whispered a different name. Marcus. I tried calling Miles Thursday afternoon, using the number Victoria had given me for coordinating wedding details. Madison! His voice was warm, pleased. I was just thinking about you. How's the wedding prep going? It's going well. Listen, I wanted to thank you for the flowers. Flowers? Confusion colored his tone. What flowers? My stomach dropped. The ones you've been sending to my shop all week? I haven't sent you flowers. He paused. Though I probably should have. That would have been smoother than just planning to call you after the wedding, like I said. We talked for a few more minutes, but my mind was elsewhere. If Miles hadn't sent the flowers, that left only one other MT Marcus Thornton. I hung up feeling unsettled in a way I couldn't quite name. Why would Marcus send me flowers? We'd barely spoken at the rehearsal dinner. Just those few intense moments in the darkness, his cryptic words about the wrong brother. And then nothing. Friday afternoon, I was in the back room assembling boutonnieres when Jenny poked her head through the doorway, her eyes wide. Madison, there's someone here to see you. Tell them I'll be out in 5 minutes. I just need to finish. I really think you should come now. Something in her voice made me set down my wire cutters. I stepped into the main shop and froze. Miles stood near the front counter, examining a display of succulents with casual interest. He looked up when I entered, that easy smile spreading across his face. Hey, I hope it's okay that I just dropped by. I was in the neighborhood and thought we could grab that coffee I've been promising myself I'd ask you about. Sure, that sounds nice. I wiped my hands on my apron, trying to ignore the flutter in my stomach. He really was attractive, and his attention felt good after so long being single. Let me just grab my purse. Take your time. He picked up one of my business cards, studying it with apparent fascination. I ducked into the back room, running fingers through my hair and wishing I'd worn something nicer than jeans and an old band t-shirt. When I emerged, purse in hand, I found Jenny staring at something outside the shop window, her mouth slightly open. "What is it?" I followed her gaze and felt my heart stutter. A black Mercedes had pulled up directly in front of my shop, its sleek lines and tinted windows screaming money and power. As I watched, the driver's door opened and Marcus Thornton stepped out. He wore a charcoal suit that probably cost more than my monthly revenue. His dark hair perfectly styled, aviator sunglasses hiding his eyes. He moved with the confidence of someone who owned whatever space he occupied, and when he removed his sunglasses, his gaze locked onto the shop window, onto me, with laser focus. "Friend of yours?" Miles asked, his tone carefully light. But when I glanced at him, I saw tension in his jaw that hadn't been there before. Marcus entered the shop, and the space immediately felt smaller. His presence filled it, commanding attention in a way that had nothing to do with his physical size, and everything to do with the authority he radiated. "Miles." His voice was cool, controlled. "I didn't realize you'd be here." "Picking up Madison for coffee." Miles moved slightly, positioning himself closer to me. "We have plans." "Do you?" It wasn't a question. Marcus's gaze shifted to me, and I felt pinned in place like a butterfly on a board. "I came to discuss an order for my office. Victoria mentioned you also do corporate arrangements." It was a lie. I could see it in the slight tension around his eyes, hear it in the too casual tone. But what could I say? "I know you're lying, and you're really here to sabotage your brother's coffee date." "I do," I heard myself say. "But I'm actually just heading out." "This will only take a moment." Marcus pulled out his phone, swiping through what I assumed were photos. "I need arrangements for several locations. My office downtown, 2 restaurants I own, and my home. Money is no object. I want the best." He said it while looking at Miles, and the subtext was clear. "Marcus, I'm sure this could wait until—" Miles started. "Could it?" Marcus's attention swung back to me. "Madison, do you have time to discuss business, or should I take my considerable contract elsewhere?" The air between the brothers crackled with tension. I looked from one to the other, my mind racing. This wasn't about flowers or business contracts. This was about me, about whatever rivalry had sparked between them at the rehearsal dinner. "I can spare a few minutes," I said quietly. "Miles, would it be okay if we postponed coffee? I really can't afford to turn down a contract this size." Miles's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Of course. Business first." He shot Marcus a look I couldn't quite interpret. "I'll call you later, Madison." After Miles left, Marcus pulled out his wallet and withdrew a black credit card, setting it on my counter. "I need fresh arrangements delivered weekly to all 4 locations. Premium flowers only. Whatever you think best." "Mr. Thornton." "Marcus." His gaze held mine. "Call me Marcus." "Marcus," I corrected, trying to ignore how his name felt on my tongue. "This is a lot of locations for weekly deliveries. The cost would be— I told you, money is no object." He leaned against the counter, close enough that I could smell his cologne. "I want your flowers in my spaces, Madison. Your touch, your artistry." The way he said it made it sound like something else entirely. "I'll need to see the spaces," I managed, "to understand the lighting, the aesthetic. I'll send a car for you Monday morning, 9 a.m. He straightened, sliding his sunglasses back on. "Dress comfortably. We'll be visiting all 4 locations." He was gone before I could protest, leaving behind his credit card and the lingering scent of cedar and expensive fabric. Jenny appeared from wherever she'd been hiding. "What just happened?" I have no idea, I admitted. But my hands were shaking as I picked up Marcus's credit card, the black metal cool against my palm. That evening, another delivery arrived at my apartment. Not flowers this time, but a dress box from a boutique whose window displays I'd admired but never had the courage to enter. Inside, wrapped in tissue paper, was a simple but stunning dress in deep forest green. The cut was elegant, professional, but with enough style to make it special. A note card lay on top. For Monday, you shouldn't have to worry about what to wear. MT. I should have been angry. Should have been insulted that he'd presumed to buy me clothing, that he'd somehow found out my address, my size. Instead, I found myself holding the dress up to my body, imagining Marcus's reaction when he saw me in it. The Thornton wedding arrived in a blur of organized chaos. I barely slept the night before, triple-checking every bouquet, every centerpiece, every detail. When I arrived at the venue, a historic estate on the river, my team and I had 4 hours to transform the space into Victoria's vision. By the time guests began arriving, I was exhausted but satisfied. The ceremony space looked like a garden had bloomed overnight, white flowers cascading from every surface, romantic and lush and perfect. I stood in the back, watching the ceremony with the caterers and venue staff, allowing myself a moment of pride. This was what I'd dreamed of building, a business that created beauty, that gave people perfect moments to remember. The ceremony ended with thunderous applause, and I slipped away to check the reception space one final time. Everything was perfect. The centerpieces caught the candlelight just right. The garlands framed the head table beautifully, and the flower wall for photos was already attracting guests with phones raised. You outdid yourself. I turned to find Marcus behind me, devastating in his tuxedo, a white rose boutonniere pinned to his lapel, one of the ones I'd made. Thank you. I smoothed down my simple black dress, not the green one he'd sent. I'd left that hanging in my closet, unable to accept such an intimate gift. Victoria seems happy. She's ecstatic. He moved closer, his dark eyes traveling over my face. But I'm not talking about my sister's happiness right now. My heart rate kicked up. What are you talking about? I'm talking about Monday, 9 a.m. My driver will pick you up at your apartment. His voice dropped lower. Wear the dress, Madison. I can't accept. You can. His hand caught mine, thumb tracing across my knuckles. You will. Because denying me doesn't change what's already happening between us. Nothing is happening between us, I whispered, but the words felt hollow. Your brother asked me to dinner. You and I barely know each other. My brother, Marcus repeated, something dangerous flashing in his eyes. Tell me, Madison, when you see flowers in your shop every morning, who do you think of? When you read those notes, whose voice do you hear? I couldn't answer, because he was right. Every delivery, every note, I'd heard his voice, seen his dark eyes, felt that same flutter of fear and fascination. That's what I thought. He released my hand but didn't step back. Monday, 9 a.m. Don't make me come get you. He walked away, leaving me standing alone among the flowers I'd arranged, my pulse racing and my mind spinning with the realization that I was in far deeper than I'd understood. And somewhere across the reception, I caught sight of Miles watching us, his expression unreadable, but his attention fixed solely on where his brother had just been standing. The game, I realized with a sinking feeling, had only just begun. Monday morning arrived too quickly. I stood in my apartment at 8:30, staring at the green dress still hanging in my closet, its fabric seeming to mock my indecision. Wearing it felt like accepting something I wasn't ready to name. Not wearing it felt like a rebellion that would only prove I was thinking about him far too much. In the end, I compromised. I wore my own clothes, cream slacks and a silk blouse, but I couldn't quite bring myself to leave the dress behind. Something about Marcus Thornton's quiet certainty suggested that defying him directly would be a mistake. The car arrived at exactly 9 a.m. Not Marcus, but a driver in a pristine uniform who introduced himself as James and held the door of the Mercedes with the kind of deference usually reserved for heads of state. "Mr. Thornton is waiting at the first location, ma'am," he said as we pulled into traffic. The first location turned out to be Marcus's downtown office, the entire 42nd floor of a glass and steel tower that probably appeared in architectural magazines. When the elevator doors opened, I stepped into a reception area that looked more like an art gallery than an office. Everything was dark wood, leather, and clean lines, with modern artwork on the walls and floor-to-ceiling windows offering views of the city that made my breath catch. Marcus stood near the windows, phone to his ear, his back to me. Even from behind, he commanded attention. The breadth of his shoulders, the way he stood with absolute certainty of his place in the world, the unconscious authority in every line of his body. He turned when he heard my heels on the polished floor, and I watched his gaze travel over me. Something flashed in his dark eyes. Disappointment? No, not quite. Something more complex. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, ending the conversation without waiting for a response. "You didn't wear the dress." It wasn't an accusation, just an observation. I wore my own clothes. I lifted my chin. "You hired me for my professional expertise, not my willingness to be dressed like a doll." A smile tugged at the corner of his mouth. "There she is. There who is. The woman with thorns." He moved closer, and I forced myself not to step back. I was wondering when she'd show up. The polite florist who smiles and agrees with everything is charming, Madison. But she's not real. This, his gaze held mine. This is real. I didn't know what to say to that. Didn't know how to respond to a man who seemed to see through every careful facade I'd constructed. "Show me the space," I said instead, falling back on professionalism. "Tell me what you envision." For the next hour, we walked through his office, and I took notes on lighting, traffic patterns, existing decor. Marcus proved surprisingly knowledgeable about design, asking thoughtful questions about color theory and seasonal availability. But underneath every professional exchange, I felt his attention on me like a physical touch. "The conference room needs something bold," he said, as we entered a space dominated by a massive glass table. "Something that makes a statement." "Like you," I said without thinking, then felt heat rise to my cheeks. His smile was slow, satisfied. "Exactly like me." The second location was an upscale Italian restaurant in the financial district. As we entered through the kitchen entrance, staff straightened immediately, their deference toward Marcus absolute. He owned this place, I realized. Probably owned half the restaurants in the city. "Mr. Thornton," the head chef greeted him with a slight bow. "We weren't expecting you today. Just showing someone around, Enzo." Marcus's hand settled at the small of my back, guiding me through the kitchen with proprietary ease. "This is Madison Cole. She'll be providing our floral arrangements." Over the next 2 hours, as we visited the restaurant and then a second establishment, this one a sleek sushi bar in the arts district, I began to understand the scope of Marcus's world. He wasn't just wealthy. He was powerful in a way that made people nervous, that commanded immediate respect and obedience. Staff jumped to fulfill his request before he finished asking. Managers materialized to answer questions I hadn't voiced. And through it all, his attention remained fixed on me, with an intensity that should have been uncomfortable, but instead felt oddly protective. "One more location," he said, as we returned to the car. "My home." My stomach flipped. "I don't think that's necessary. I can design something based on photos. I want you to see it." His voice left no room for argument. "I want you to understand the space, the light, what I need. what he needed. The words carried weight beyond flower arrangements. Marcus's home wasn't a penthouse or mansion as I'd expected. It was a converted industrial loft in a quiet neighborhood, all exposed brick and soaring ceilings with massive windows that let in floods of natural light. The space was masculine but not cold. Leather furniture, dark wood, artwork that suggested actual taste rather than an interior designer's vision. "This is beautiful," I said honestly, moving to the windows that overlooked a small private garden. I wasn't expecting something so warm. "What were you expecting?" He appeared beside me, close enough that our arms almost touched. "A villain's lair? All chrome and intimidation?" I laughed despite myself. "Maybe a little." "I'm not a villain, Madison." His voice was serious now. "Though I'm not entirely a hero either. I'm just a man who knows what he wants and refuses to pretend otherwise." "And what do you want?" He turned to face me fully, and the intensity in his dark eyes made my breath catch. "I think you know the answer to that." "Your brother," I started, but he cut me off. "My brother is playing a game." His voice was calm, but edged with steel. "Miles has never wanted for anything in his life. Everything has always come easily to him. Charm, looks, opportunities. He's never had to fight for something, never had to prove himself worthy. So when he sees something I want, he wants it too. Not because he actually wants it, but because taking it from me is a challenge he can't resist." "You're talking about me like I'm a thing to be won." "No." He stepped closer, his hand coming up to cut my jaw with surprising gentleness. "I'm talking about you like you're the most important thing in my world. There's a difference." I should have pulled away, should have maintained professional distance. But his touch was warm, his calloused thumb tracing my cheekbone, and something in me wanted to lean into this dangerous certainty. "I barely know you," I whispered. "You know me." His voice dropped lower. "You knew me the moment we met. I saw it in your eyes, felt it in the way you tensed when I touched you. Not fear, Madison. Recognition. Like seeing something you'd been searching for without knowing you were searching." "That's not..." I tried to form a coherent argument, but he was too close, too overwhelming. "Tell me something," he continued, his other hand finding my waist, holding me in place without force. "When Miles asked you to dinner, did your heart race like this? When he kissed your cheek, did you think about it for hours afterward? When you saw him at the wedding, did you feel pulled toward him like gravity?" I couldn't answer, because he was right. Miles was attractive, charming, easy to be around, but he didn't make me feel this electricity, this magnetic pull, this sense of standing on the edge of something that would change everything. I didn't think so. Marcus's voice held quiet triumph. "Miles is safe. He's the logical choice, the easy path. But you don't want easy, do you, Madison? You want real. You want someone who sees every part of you, the thorns and the petals, and wants all of it. You don't know what I want, don't I?" His thumb traced my lower lip, and I couldn't suppress the shiver that ran through me. "You want someone who won't pretend, someone who will claim you honestly instead of playing games, someone who will fight for you, protect you, worship you the way you deserve. And that someone isn't my brother, no matter how much easier that would be." Before I could respond, his phone buzzed. He glanced at it, his jaw tightening with obvious irritation. "I have a meeting I can't postpone," he said, stepping back with clear reluctance. "James will take you home." "But Madison..." He caught my hand, bringing it to his lips in a gesture that felt intimate despite its formality. "Think about what I said. Think about what you actually want, not what you think you should want." In the car ride home, I stared out the window and tried to process everything. Marcus was intense, overwhelming, probably too much in every way. But he was also honest in a way that felt rare. He didn't hide his interest or play it cool. He simply stated what he wanted, me, with absolute conviction. My phone buzzed with a text from Miles. Hope Marcus didn't bore you with his business talk today. Still want to grab that coffee? I promise I'm more fun than spreadsheets and profit margins. I stared at the message, then at Marcus's black credit card still in my purse, authorized for unlimited purchases for his flowers. His flowers. The ones he wanted in his spaces because they came from my hands. A second text arrived, this one from an unknown number. You were beautiful today, even in the wrong dress. M. I saved his number, my fingers trembling slightly. When I got home, I found another delivery waiting. Not flowers this time, but a simple white box. Inside, on a bed of tissue paper, lay a leather-bound journal with my initials embossed on the cover. The note inside read, "For your designs, for your dreams, for every thought you've been too afraid to voice. Nothing about you should ever go unexpressed. Marcus." I sat on my couch, the journal heavy in my hands, and realized I was in serious trouble. Because Marcus Thornton wasn't just pursuing me. He was learning me, understanding me, giving me things I didn't even know I needed. And despite every logical reason to choose his charming, uncomplicated brother, my treacherous heart was already choosing the dangerous man who looked at me like I was his entire world. The coffee date with Miles happened 3 days later at a trendy cafe near my shop. I told myself I owed him the courtesy, that dismissing him outright because of his brother's intensity would be unfair. But as I sat across from him, listening to stories about his latest sailing trip, I couldn't stop thinking about Marcus's question. Did your heart race like this? It didn't. Miles was wonderful, funny, attentive, interesting. But there was no electricity, no magnetic pull that made me hyper-aware of every breath, every movement. You're distracted, Miles observed, his blue eyes sharp despite his easy smile. Let me guess, my brother? I nearly choked on my latte. What? Marcus has a way of consuming all the oxygen in a room. He leaned back, studying me with an expression I couldn't quite read. He always has. Even when we were kids, everything revolved around him. The heir, the responsible one, the one Dad groomed to take over the family businesses. Something bitter crept into his tone. The rest of us were just accessories. That sounds difficult. It was what it was. He shrugged, but tension remained in his shoulders. Marcus got the empire and the expectations. I got freedom. Usually, I prefer my end of the deal. Usually. His gaze met mine directly. Until he decides he wants something I've shown interest in. Then it becomes a competition he has to win. The implication hung between us. I was something Miles had shown interest in, therefore something Marcus now had to claim. I'm not a prize, I said quietly. I know. His smile turned rueful. But try telling Marcus that. When he decides something is his, he doesn't let go. Ever. Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Though I suspected I knew exactly who it was. Turn around. I twisted in my seat and felt my heart stutter. Across the street, partially obscured by pedestrians, sat a familiar black Mercedes. I couldn't see through the tinted windows, but I knew Marcus was inside. Watching. Jesus Christ, Miles muttered, following my gaze. He's actually here? That's a new level of pathetic, even for him. Maybe it's a coincidence. It's not. Miles's jaw tightened. My brother doesn't do coincidences. He stood abruptly, leaving cash on the table. Come on. If Marcus wants to play stalker, let's give him a show. Before I could protest, Miles took my hand and led me out of the cafe. I expected him to confront his brother, to march across the street and start an argument. Instead, He turned toward the small park adjacent to the cafe, pulling me along with theatrical attention, touching my lower back, leaning close to whisper something that made me laugh despite my discomfort. "Miles, what are you doing?" "Proving a point." He glanced over his shoulder toward where the Mercedes hadn't moved. "Marcus thinks he can intimidate everyone into submission. Someone needs to show him he can't control everything. So you're using me to antagonize your brother?" He had the grace to look slightly guilty. "I'm giving you a choice. Marcus will tell you that you're his, that it's inevitable, that fighting it is pointless. But you deserve better than a man who sees you as something to possess." We walked through the park, and Miles kept up his performance, holding my hand, pointing out flowers and asking questions about their names, being charming and attentive. And through it all, I felt Marcus's presence like a physical weight. When Miles finally walked me back to my shop, he paused at the door. "I like you, Madison, genuinely. Not because of Marcus, not as part of some rivalry. You're talented, intelligent, beautiful, and you deserve someone who sees you as a person, not a possession." He squeezed my hand. "Think about it." After he left, I stood outside my shop, trying to process everything. The black Mercedes was gone, but I knew better than to think Marcus had simply accepted Miles's display. I was right. That evening, as I was closing up, 3 men in expensive suits entered my shop. The leader, a man with silver-streaked hair and cold eyes, introduced himself as Anthony Greco. "Miss Cole, we need to discuss your lease." My stomach dropped. "What about it?" "The building has been sold. New ownership is implementing some changes. Unfortunately, your shop doesn't fit the new vision for this location. You can't just evict me. I have a lease, which contains a clause allowing termination with 60 days' notice under change of ownership." His smile didn't reach his eyes. "You have 2 months to vacate." After they left, I sank onto my work stool, panic clawing at my throat. 60 days. 2 months to find a new location, move all my equipment, inform my clients. The Thornton wedding contract had been huge, but not enough to cover moving costs and potentially higher rent elsewhere. My phone rang. "Marcus." "Don't answer it," I told myself, but my traitorous hand picked up anyway. "Madison." His voice was warm, concerned. "I heard about your shop. Are you all right?" "How did you—" I stopped. Of course he knew. He probably knew before I did. "Did you do this?" "No." He sounded genuinely offended. "I would never sabotage your business. But I know who did." "Who?" "Anthony Greco. He's a business associate of my father's. Old guard, traditional thinking. He sees my interest in you as a weakness." A pause. "He's trying to eliminate distractions from my life, force you out of the city before things between us become more serious." "Things between us?" I laughed, though it came out slightly hysterical. "We barely know each other. There is no us." "There will be." His certainty was unshakable. "And men like Greco see that as a problem. I'm meant to marry within appropriate circles. Daughters of other families, women who understand our world. A florist from outside our sphere threatens that order. So, what am I supposed to do? Just accept losing my business?" "No." Steel entered his voice. "You accept my help. I have a building in the Arts District, ground floor retail space, twice the size of your current shop, completely renovated. Move your business there. No rent for the first 6 months. After that, we'll negotiate terms you can actually afford." "I can't accept that. It's too much." "You can, and you will." His tone left no room for argument. "Because the alternative is you spending the next 2 months scrambling to find something adequate, draining your savings, potentially losing clients in the transition. Pride is admirable, Madison, but it's also stupid when you have someone willing and able to help. There are always strings with help like this, No strings. A pause. Just an understanding that you're important to me, that your success matters to me, that seeing you struggle when I could easily prevent it is unacceptable. I closed my eyes, torn between gratitude and resentment. Why does everything with you feel like you're taking control of my life? Because I am. His honesty was devastating. Not to diminish you, but to protect you. To give you the space and resources to build something even bigger than what you have now. You're talented, Madison. Exceptional. But talent needs opportunity. And I'm offering you that. What do you want in return? Your time. His voice softened. Dinner, tomorrow night. Let me show you the new space. Show you what's possible. Then decide if accepting my help makes you weak or smart. Against every instinct screaming at me to refuse, I heard myself agree. The new space was everything he'd promised and more. Located in the heart of the arts district, surrounded by galleries and upscale boutiques, it had the kind of street presence that could double my business. Floor-to-ceiling windows, exposed brick walls, a back room large enough for serious production work. Marcus watched me explore, his dark eyes tracking my every reaction. The lease is already drawn up, he said, producing papers from his briefcase. 6 months rent-free, then $2,000 a month after that. Far below market rate, he added before I could protest. Consider it an investment in supporting local artists. I'm not an artist, I'm a florist. You're both. He moved closer, his presence overwhelming in the empty space. And you deserve a canvas worthy of your vision. I stared at the papers, at his elegant signature already in place, waiting only for mine. Accepting this felt like accepting him, like acknowledging the pull between us I'd been trying to deny. What happens after I sign? I asked quietly. You build your dream. His hand caught mine, warm and certain. And I get to watch you become everything you're meant to be. That's all? That's everything. He lifted my hand to his lips, the gesture sending electricity through my entire body. Though I won't pretend I don't want more. I want dinner, conversation, your time and attention. I want you to stop seeing my brother out of misplaced fairness when we both know your heart isn't in it. I want you to be honest about what you feel when I'm near you. Which is? Terrified, I admitted. Overwhelmed, like I'm standing at the edge of something that will change everything. Good. His smile was slow, satisfied. Because that's exactly what this is. The edge of everything changing. The question is whether you're brave enough to jump. I signed the papers with trembling hands, knowing I was committing to more than just a lease. I was committing to Marcus's world, his attention, his overwhelming certainty that I belonged to him. As we left the building, Marcus's hand settled possessively at my small of my back. There's one more thing, he said. I'm assigning security to you. Just temporarily, until the situation with Greco is resolved. Security? That's ridiculous. I don't need... You do. His voice was firm. Greco won't take my interference lightly. Having someone watch over you is non-negotiable. And just like that, the cage snapped shut. Gilded, beautiful, but a cage nonetheless. The move to the new space took 2 weeks, during which I barely saw Marcus. He'd disappear for days on business I didn't ask about, then reappear with updates on construction timelines or vendor recommendations. The security he'd assigned, a quiet man named David, who looked like he could break someone in half without breaking a sweat, became my constant shadow. At first, the surveillance felt suffocating. David followed me everywhere, to supplier meetings, to the grocery store, even waiting outside my apartment building at night. But I gradually adjusted to his presence, especially after he helped me carry equipment to the new shop without being asked, and politely looked away when I had an emotional breakdown over damaged inventory, Mr. Thornton asked me to make sure you're safe, he explained when I thanked him for his help. He didn't say I couldn't also make myself useful. The new shop opened to surprising fanfare. Marcus had apparently mentioned it to everyone he knew, and suddenly I had a waiting list of corporate clients wanting weekly arrangements. My revenue tripled in the first month, and I was able to hire 2 additional employees, a luxury I'd never imagined affording. Miles stopped by the grand opening, bringing champagne and that easy smile that no longer affected me the way it should. "Impressive," he said, examining the space with genuine appreciation. "My brother certainly doesn't do anything halfway." "It's a good business opportunity," I said defensively. "It's Marcus staking his claim." Miles's blue eyes met mine. "Making sure everyone knows you're under his protection. That you're his. I'm not, aren't you?" He moved closer, lowering his voice. "Tell me honestly, Madison. When was the last time you made a decision without considering how Marcus would react? When did you last go somewhere without his security following? When did you stop being an independent businesswoman and start being Marcus Thornton's latest acquisition?" His words stung because they held truth. In accepting Marcus's help, I'd accepted his influence over my life. But what choice had I had? Let my business fail out of pride. "At least Marcus is honest about what he wants," I said quietly. "You've been using me to provoke him since we met." Miles had the grace to look guilty. "You're right. I have been, but not entirely for the reasons you think." He reached out, tucking a strand of hair behind my ear, a gesture he knew Marcus would hate. "I wanted to see if he'd actually fight for something, if you were real to him or just another possession to acquire. Because if you're just a possession, you deserve better. You deserve someone who sees you as a person, not a prize. And if I am real to him, then he needs to prove it." Miles's hand lingered on my cheek. "He needs to show you that you're more than just something he owns, that he values you, not just what you represent." That evening, I received a text from Marcus. "Miles was at your shop today." Not a question, a statement of fact. Of course his security reported back to him. I typed and deleted several responses before settling on. He brought champagne for the opening. The response came immediately. "He touched you." My stomach flipped. How did he know that? Had David reported it, or did Marcus have cameras installed without telling me? "It was nothing," I replied. "Everything he does is calculated to provoke me, and it's working." Before I could respond, another text arrived. "I'm coming over. We need to talk." He arrived 20 minutes later, still in a suit from whatever meeting he'd been in, his jaw tight with barely controlled anger. David, who'd been stationed outside my apartment, simply nodded and stepped aside as Marcus strode past. "You can't just show up at my apartment whenever you want," I said as he entered without invitation. "I can when my brother is playing games with what's mine." He closed the door behind him with deliberate care, the quiet click somehow more intimidating than slamming. "I'm not yours. How many times do I have to say it? Until you stop lying." He crossed the space between us in 3 strides. "You are mine, Madison. You became mine the moment you smiled at my brother, and I realized I'd do anything, destroy anyone, to have you smile at me like that instead. That's not love. That's obsession. Maybe." His hands framed my face, forcing me to meet his dark eyes. "But tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me you don't think about me constantly, that you don't look for me in every room, that your heart doesn't race when I touch you." I couldn't, because all of it was true. "Miles says you see me as a possession," I whispered. "Miles is trying to drive a wedge between us because that's what he does. Undermines anything I build." His thumb traced my lower lip. "But he's wrong. You're not a possession, Madison. You're a necessity. Your air and water and everything essential to survival. And yes, that makes me obsessive, possessive, probably unhealthy by normal standards. But there's nothing normal about what I feel for you. He kissed me then, not gently, but with desperate hunger, like a man who'd been holding back too long. And I kissed him back, my hands fisting in his shirt, pulling him closer despite every logical reason to push him away. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. Let Miles play his games. Let him test me. But don't doubt what you are to me. Don't doubt that I'd burn the entire city down before letting anyone hurt you or take you from me. That's not romantic. That's terrifying. It's honest. He pulled back enough to meet my eyes. And I promised you honesty, remember? The next morning, I woke to find Marcus gone but a note on my pillow. Breakfast is in the kitchen. I have meetings all day, but I'll call you tonight. Also, I'm buying your building. I stared at the note, then scrambled out of bed to find him. But he was already gone. A text confirmed what the note had said. Your landlord is selling. I'm buying to ensure your lease remains favorable. Don't argue. I tried calling him, but it went straight to voicemail. Frustrated, I got ready for work, where I found Miles waiting outside the shop. We need to talk, he said, his expression serious. If this is about Marcus, it's about you. He gestured to the coffee shop next door. 5 minutes, please. Over coffee, Miles laid out everything. Anthony Greco wasn't just trying to eliminate me as a distraction. He was using me to test Marcus's commitment to the family business. If Marcus continued prioritizing me over strategic alliances and appropriate marriages, there would be consequences. What kind of consequences? The kind that ends with Marcus losing control of the businesses he's spent his entire life building. Miles's voice was grave. My father is old, Madison. Dying, though he won't admit it. There's going to be a succession battle, and Marcus has enemies who'd love any excuse to question his fitness to lead. You, an outsider, no connections, no strategic value. You're the perfect excuse. So what am I supposed to do? Leave? Let Marcus throw away everything for me? I don't know. Miles looked genuinely troubled. I started this as a game, as a way to needle my brother. But seeing how he is with you, how far he's willing to go, maybe you are real to him. Maybe you're worth the cost. But you need to understand what that cost actually is. That evening, Marcus called as promised. I told him about my conversation with Miles, expecting him to dismiss it as more manipulation. Instead, there was a long silence. Miles is right, he said finally. There will be consequences. There already are. But that's my problem, not yours. How can you say that? If I'm the reason you lose everything, then I'll build something new. His voice was firm. With you. Because you're worth more than any empire, Madison. You're worth everything. That's too much pressure. I can't be worth your entire world. Too late. I could hear the smile in his voice. You already are. 2 days later, everything came to a head. I was at the shop when 3 men entered. Not the usual corporate types looking for arrangements, but men with cold eyes and dangerous energy. David stepped between us immediately, his hand moving to his jacket. Miss Cole, the leader said, ignoring David entirely. Mr. Greco would like a word. She's not going anywhere, David replied, his voice calm but steely. That wasn't a request. What happened next occurred in a blur. David's hand emerged from his jacket, not with a gun as I'd feared, but with his phone, already dialing. The men advanced, and David positioned himself as a shield between them and me. Then Marcus's voice came through the phone's speaker, loud and clear and absolutely terrifying in its calm. Tell Greco that if his men take one step closer to what's mine, I'll consider it an act of war. And war with me doesn't end well for anyone." The men froze. One of them stepped forward to take the phone from David, speaking in rapid Italian. Whatever Marcus said in response made the man's face pale. They left without another word. David turned to me, still holding the phone. "Mr. Thornton wants to speak with you." My hand shook as I took the phone. "Marcus? Are you hurt?" His voice was tight with barely controlled fury. "No," David protected me. "Good. Stay there. I'm sending more security. And Madison?" A pause. This is what I meant about consequences. Being with me, being mine, it puts a target on you. Greco and others like him will try to use you against me. That's the cost of what we have. Maybe we shouldn't... Don't. The word was sharp. Don't even think about walking away to protect me. I won't allow it. You're mine. And I protect what's mine with everything I have, no matter the cost. After we hung up, I sank into my chair, finally understanding the full scope of Marcus Thornton's world. An understanding that I was irreversibly part of it now, whether I'd chosen to be or not. Marcus arrived at my shop within 30 minutes, flanked by 4 men who looked like they could end someone with a glance. But it was Marcus himself who commanded the space, dressed in all black, his dark eyes blazing with protective fury, every line of his body radiating lethal intent. "Pack your essentials," he said without preamble. "You're staying at my place until this is resolved. I can't just abandon my business. Your employees can handle things for a few days. David and 2 others will remain here to ensure nothing happens to the shop." His tone left no room for argument. "You are coming with me. Now." I wanted to fight him, to assert my independence, to prove I wasn't just something he could order around, but the fear still coursing through my veins from Greco's men made me nod instead. At Marcus's loft, he disappeared into his office for hours, emerging only after darkness had fallen. I'd spent the time pacing, trying to work, failing to concentrate on anything beyond the churning anxiety in my gut. "It's handled," he said simply, pouring himself a drink. "What's handled?" "Greco. The threat. All of it." He took a long sip, his expression unreadable. "He won't bother you again." "What did you do?" "Nothing you need to worry about." He set down his glass and moved toward me. "I told you I'd protect you. That includes dealing with threats in ways you might not approve of." "Marcus, don't ask questions you don't want answered, Madison." His hands settled on my shoulders. "Just trust that you're safe. That's all that matters." But I couldn't leave it alone. Over the next 2 days, staying in Marcus's loft while he dealt with what he called business, I began to understand the true scope of his power. Phone calls at all hours in Italian and Russian. Men coming and going with deferential nods. The way Marcus moved through it all with absolute authority. This wasn't just a successful businessman. This was something else entirely. Something darker. On the 3rd night, Miles showed up unannounced. "I need to talk to Madison," he told Marcus, his expression serious. "Alone." Marcus's jaw tightened. "No. It's important. It's about her safety, about what you're doing to protect her, and whether it's enough." Something in Miles's tone must have resonated, because Marcus, after a long moment, nodded curtly and left us in the living room. "What's going on?" I asked as soon as we were alone. "I owe you an apology." Miles ran a hand through his hair. "And an explanation. I've been testing Marcus since the moment he showed interest in you. Pushing his buttons, flirting with you, touching you in ways I knew would make him furious. I know. You admitted that already. What you don't know is why." He met my eyes. "Our father is dying, Madison. Within 6 months, probably less. And when he dies, Marcus inherits everything. The businesses, the responsibilities, the weight of our entire family's legacy. But there are those who think he's too ruthless, too willing to cross lines our father never would. They want someone more, manageable. Someone like you? Someone like me, he agreed. But I don't want it. Never have. I'm not built for that world. Marcus it's in his blood, in every cell. He was made for this. But if he's compromised, if he shows weakness, they'll use it as an excuse to push him out and install someone they can control. And I'm that weakness. You were supposed to be. Miles's smile was rueful. I flirted with you, provoked him, created a rivalry to see how he'd handle it. Would he choose power, or would he choose you? Would he be strategic or emotional? And more importantly, if he chose you, would he do it in a way that kept you safe? Or would his obsession put you in more danger? My stomach twisted. This was all a test. At first. But then I saw how he is with you. How far he's willing to go. The building he bought for your shop, the security, the way he looks at you like you're his entire world. And I realized something. He paused. Marcus has never loved anything more than he loves you. Not the business, not the family legacy, nothing. You're his everything. And that kind of devotion, that kind of commitment, it's rare, worth protecting. So what now? Now I stopped testing him. Miles moved toward the door, then looked back. And I tell you that if you choose him, really choose him with full knowledge of what his world entails, he'll never let you down. He'll protect you with everything he has. He'll love you so completely that nothing else will ever matter to him more. But you have to choose it freely, Madison. Not because you're grateful for his help or scared of his power, but because you want that kind of love, that kind of forever. After Miles left, I found Marcus standing on his terrace, looking out at the city lights. I heard, he said without turning, these lofts have thin walls. Did you know that Miles was testing you? I suspected. He glanced back at me. Miles has never wanted anything I have. Him suddenly pursuing you didn't make sense unless there was an ulterior motive. And you didn't tell me? Because it didn't matter. He turned fully to face me. Test or not, game or genuine interest, the end result was the same. You were mine, and I wasn't letting you go. Miles could play whatever games he wanted. The outcome was never in question. You're very certain about that. Because I'm certain about you. He closed the distance between us. About us. About the fact that from the moment you smiled at my brother at that rehearsal dinner, something in me recognized you, claimed you, knew that you were meant to be mine. That's not how it works. You can't just decide someone belongs to you. Can I? His hands framed my face with that familiar, possessive gentleness. Tell me you don't feel it too. Tell me you don't think about me every moment. That you don't look for me in every room. That being away from me doesn't feel wrong in a way you can't explain. I couldn't. Because everything he said was true. I'm scared, I whispered. Of how much I want this. Of what your world means. Of losing myself in you. You won't lose yourself. His thumbs traced my cheekbones. You'll find parts of yourself you didn't know existed. With me, you can be everything. Strong and vulnerable, independent and protected. Your own person and mine. Because that's what love is, Madison. Not diminishing, but expanding. Is that what this is? Love? Yes. No hesitation. Obsessive, possessive, probably unhealthy by normal standards. But love nonetheless. I love you, Madison Cole. I love your strength and your stubbornness. I love that you challenge me and that you're terrified of me and that you're brave enough to choose me anyway. and I will spend the rest of my life proving that I'm worthy of that choice." "The rest of your life?" He pulled a small velvet box from his pocket, and my breath caught. "The rest of our lives," he corrected, opening it to reveal a ring, not ostentatious, but beautiful. A single diamond surrounded by smaller stones that caught the light like stars. "Marry me, not because I'm buying your building or providing security or giving you business opportunities. Marry me because when you imagine your future, I'm in every moment of it. Because being apart feels wrong, and being together feels inevitable." Tears blurred my vision. "This is insane. We've known each other less than 2 months. And I knew you were mine in less than 2 seconds." He took the ring from the box. "Time is irrelevant when you've found the person you're meant to spend it with." I should have said no. Should have asked for time, for space, for sanity. But standing there with Marcus looking at me like I was his entire world, I realized Miles was right. This kind of devotion, this kind of love, it was rare, worth choosing, worth the risk. "Yes," I whispered. His smile was radiant as he slid the ring onto my finger. "Say it again." "Yes, I'll marry you. Yes, I'm yours. Yes, I choose this, choose you, with full knowledge of what it means." He kissed me then, fierce and claiming and full of promise. When we finally broke apart, I was breathless and laughing and crying all at once. "What about Greco? The threats? The people who think I'm your weakness?" "Let them think it." His arms tightened around me. "Because they're wrong. You're not my weakness, Madison. You're my strength, my reason for being ruthless enough to eliminate anyone who threatens what's mine. My motivation to build an empire so powerful that no one would dare touch you." In the weeks that followed, Marcus was true to his word. Whatever he'd done to neutralize Greco worked. The threats evaporated. The pressure eased. Miles became a frequent visitor, no longer testing but supporting, telling embarrassing stories about Marcus that made me laugh and him scowl. And through it all, Marcus loved me with an intensity that should have been overwhelming, but instead felt like coming home. The wedding was small, just family and close friends. Victoria cried through the entire ceremony. Miles served as best man and whispered, "You deserve each other," in a tone that somehow sounded like both a blessing and a warning. And when Marcus slid the wedding band onto my finger, his dark eyes holding mine with absolute certainty, I knew I'd made the right choice. I was Madison Thornton now, wife to a man who'd burn the world down to protect me, partner to someone whose love was as dangerous as it was devoted. And I'd never been happier in my life.